Jack awoke after a short sleep and realized his girlfriend had left without him knowing. Hoping to call her for breakfast, he suddenly remembered the air defense alarm outside. Curious, he rushed to the balcony, only to be terrified by the scene before him. A neighbor had inexplicably committed suicide by jumping off the building, and a military helicopter had lost control and crashed nearby. As Jack tried to comprehend the chaos, he heard screams and roars from the crowd below. Leaning over the balcony, he saw many residents fleeing the community, and his girlfriend waiting among them. Jack wanted to ask his girlfriend what was going on, but his girlfriend and a man suddenly pounced on him like an old man and began to bite him. Jack was at a loss by this horrible scene. He didn't know what was going on below. When she rolled back to the house, a male neighbor suddenly broke into the house suspiciously. The male neighbor said that his wife suddenly became crazy and hoped that Jack could temporarily take him in for a few hours. However, before Jack promised the male neighbor, he went into the bathroom with his bloody head. Jack realized that it was not that simple, so he picked up a fruit knife and was ready to fight back at any time. Then, an emergency news broke out on TV. The host said that the whole world is being swept by a lost virus. At present, 90% of human beings have completely become zombies, and humans who have been bitten or caught by zombies will instantly become emotionless. The neighbor who had just walked out of the toilet also saw this news. He hurriedly explained that he had just been scratched and the skin was fine, but in the next second, his eyes began to congestion, and the skin on his face was rotting at a speed visible to the naked eye. Seeing that the male neighbor was about to become a zombie, Jack immediately forced the male neighbor to leave his house immediately with a knife. The male neighbor, who had not completely mutated, turned around and walked out of 50,000 yuan. Jack saw this. He rushed up and closed the door tightly. Sure enough, within a few seconds, a miserable scream came from outside the house. Jack curiously looked out through the cat's eye and saw that his neighbor's body was being torn to pieces by other neighbors with their teeth. Under a series of horrible images, Jack's legs were weak and collapsed on the ground. He knew that the outside world must have been occupied by zombies at this time. He wanted to contact his parents to ask about the situation there, but no one answered the phone. At this moment, he suddenly saw a small incident. He didn't know that if he wanted to survive, he had to take good security measures. He blocked the door with a refrigerator to prevent the zombies from opening the door and breaking into anger. Then, he covered the window with paper to avoid being discovered by the zombies. Then, he moved the mattress to the living room. This way, when he rested at night, he could monitor the window and any motives at the door at any time. As time goes by 1 minute and 1 second, the door is abnormal, and there will be the sound of someone walking by, and someone will knock on the door from time to time. Jack wasn't sure if the person at the door was a real person, so in order to save himself, he had to choose to ignore it. That night, when Jack was preparing to go to bed, he suddenly heard a strange movement in the toilet. Not long after picking up the baseball bat and walking slowly towards the toilet, a zombie fell into the toilet from the ventilation duct above. Under the sudden change, Jack immediately hid behind the sofa. The female funeral teacher had a good face and an excellent figure, but Jack knew that the other party had mutated, so when the female funeral was not paying attention, he threw her head with a baseball bat directly behind and watched the female funeral lying motionless on the ground. Without any distractions, Jack picked up the female funeral and threw it out of the window. Then she used a surfboard to press it against the ventilation duct to prevent more funerals. However, as time goes by, the output of tap water gradually decreasing, there is not much food left at home. Just when Jack was in despair and didn't know how to survive next, the short message ringing in his mobile phone suddenly rang. Jack opened it and saw a voice message sent by Kim's mother 5 days ago. To Jack's despair, his parents were attacked by zombies a week ago. After persisting for 2 days, they finally couldn't withstand being bitten by zombies. Just 1 second before they became zombies, their mother sent Jack this voice message full of screams. Jack was very sad after hearing this. She frantically smashed things to vent powder, but this was not enough to eliminate the anger in his heart, so he picked up a baseball bat. He was going out to settle accounts with those funerals, but as soon as he walked out of the door, he was found by a group of funerals. Faced with the hunt of zombies, Jack had no choice but to rush back to the house and block the refrigerator on the door. When Jack calmed down, he realized that it was almost impossible to avenge his parents, and it was a luxury for her to survive after not drinking water or eating for 2 days. In order to avoid being bitten by zombies and dying without dignity, Jack finally decided to use a rope to understand the shock of his life. When Jack was about to kick off the stool and end her life, she suddenly found that there was a woman living on the balcony on the first floor of the opposite building. She didn't expect it. There are still Buddhist people living in this apocalypse. When Jack was excited, he accidentally kicked it over, and the stool fell on the rope. Fortunately, the rope was not tied firmly, so he was not sent away. After Jack stabilized, he hurried to the window. When he saw the woman opposite him packing clothes, he was really sure that what he saw was not an illusion. As the whole community has been lost, Jack has no choice but to take out a note to send a message to the woman. Through simple communication, Jack learned that this woman named Bella had been trapped for 25 days, and the water source at home had already been exhausted. As soon as Jack heard this, he was ready to help Bella get some water. It suddenly started to rain heavily outside. Jack took the bottles and cans at home to the balcony to pick up water. He also washed himself from top to boy. The next morning, Jack, who was dressed in new clothes, came to the balcony and said hello to Bella. Jack threw a thick hemp rope at Bella's balcony and fixed it. After the hemp rope was fixed, he transported the water stored last night to Bella through the hemp rope, but what they didn't expect was that the sound of horizontally hitting the railing actually caught the attention of the zombies. A zombie in a suit suit climbed towards Bella's floor. The zombie's skills were extremely clean, and within a few seconds, it climbed below Bella's floor. The situation of the check ship was not good, so it changed hands and immediately picked up a glass bottle and threw it at the zombie. Someone attacked him on the zombie ship, then climbed back to the first floor and ran in Jack's direction. However, at this moment, there was a sudden sound from the door of the check house, and the refrigerator against the door was about to be pushed open by the funeral. Jack had no choice but to shut the chasing funeral outside the balcony first, and he came to the door to hold the refrigerator to prevent the funeral from breaking into the door. Fortunately, the funeral at the door did not continue to attack the door. Looking at the funeral on the balcony, he kept attacking the glass. When Jack saw this, he picked up the baseball bat and prepared to kill the zombies. What he didn't expect was that the zombies were hitting the glass. He accidentally knocked himself unconscious and fell to the ground. Taking this opportunity, Jack immediately came to the balcony and mended the zombies to prevent them from reviving again. After this narrow escape from death, Jack knew that if he continued like this, he would definitely become the ration of zombies. He had to find enough materials and then take Bella with him to continue the future generations of mankind. In the dead of night, Jack summoned up the courage to open the door and found that there was only one neighbor's body bitten by zombies in the corridor. He took out a key from the neighbor's body and then went to the neighbor's house to see if there were any usable materials. However, the blood on the wall quickly caused. After the invitation opened the bedroom door, she saw a woman lying motionless on the bed. In order to verify whether the woman was still alive, Jack picked up a helmet and threw it at the woman's body. Seeing that the woman didn't make any movement, Jack turned around with peace of mind and began to look for supplies. At least a month had passed since the zombies broke out. The meat and vegetables in the refrigerator were all rotten. Only the peanut butter in the cabinet could barely be used to replenish energy. After some search, Jack also found a level 3 bag and several powerful equipment. But just as Jack was about to take the cable, a pair of feet suddenly appeared at the door. As the funeral suddenly struck, Jack immediately picked up the steel. After the zombie was killed, Jack ran back to his home with his equipment on his back. When she got home, Jack immediately rushed to the toilet, then checked her body in the mirror and found that she had not been bitten by zombies before she often lost a sigh. While checking the level 3 bag, Jack accidentally found 2 walkie-talkies, which made Jack very excited. With these 2 walkie-talkies, he can hear Bella's voice on the opposite building. With the experience of water bottles hitting the railing during the day and attracting zombies, Jack could only climb to the first floor at the risk of being discovered by zombies, and then gently throw the walkie-talkie to Bella's floor to pick it up. Climb back to your own floor and put a note on the window saying to ask Bella to check the walkie-talkie. The next morning, before Jack woke up, a woman's voice came from the walkie-talkie. This was the first time that 2 people had heard a human voice since they were besieged by the funeral for 2 months. They talked about each other's hobbies and appreciation for each other, as if they had forgotten that it was the end of the world at this time. But the happy days didn't take long, and their reserves of materials were quickly consumed, and Jack could only climb to the ventilation duct above the toilet, thinking of going to other rooms to find materials through the duct. Although the smell in the ventilation duct is very unpleasant, it is compared with full loss. When it was obviously safe, Snowjack found a room randomly and jumped in. After confirming that there was no danger in the room, he began to look for supplies. In the kitchen, he found several cabinets full of food, which was enough for her and Bella to live for a few weeks. He picked up the walkie-talkie and told Bella the news. However, just as Bella was happy with the news, an old man suddenly appeared with a weapon and blocked Jack's way. However, after confirming that neither of them was infected by zombies, the old man thoughtfully entertained Jack with food, but just as Jack turned around to get a bottle of soy sauce, the old man suddenly knocked Jack unconscious with a stick from behind. Jack's eyes opened again, and a lost head suddenly appeared in front of him. It turned out that this zombie was the old man's wife. In order to grow old with his wife, the old man took the initiative to tie his wife, who had become a funeral, to the bed. When his wife is hungry, the old man will find living things to satisfy his wife's hunger. Just as the old man was about to feed Jack as food to his wife, the voice suddenly came from the living room. Bella was talking to Jack on the walkie-talkie and saw the old man leave the room and walk to the living room. Jack immediately used all his strength and succeeded in breaking free. When the good man returned to the bedroom again, Jack grabbed the weapon and pushed the old man to the bed. Not surprisingly, it became his wife's ration. Just as Jack was about to pack his things and leave here, Bella's cry for help suddenly came from the walkie-talkie. Bella, whose sword was hiding on the balcony, was about to be surrounded by zombies. Jack knew that time was short, so she tied the sheets and curtains into a simple rope, and then followed the rope directly to the night building. At this moment, a funeral line heard freezing. Fortunately, Jack picked up a spray on the ground and narrowly missed the funeral, but the shooting sound brought by the spray attracted more zombies. Bella hurriedly dropped the sheet. He immediately climbed the rope to escape, but Jack's climbing speed was far less than that of the zombies. Seeing that he was about to be chased by the zombies, Jack had no choice but to temporarily climb to the balcony on the floor below Balaga. Then he took out a knife and cut the sheets, and all the zombies closely followed were transferred back to the first floor. At the same time, there were more and more zombies in Balaga. In order to avoid becoming the rations of zombies, Bella had no choice but to risk her life and climb out of the balcony, then grabbed the few sheets left and jumped down and fell on Jack. Sequita people had physical contact for the first time, but it was not the time to love. They had to go back to their homes immediately before they had a chance to survive. As Jack opened the door, the two bereaved soldiers rushed to the balcony mindlessly. When the two Czechs saw this, they immediately fled out of the door. However, there were too many zombies in the corridor, so Jack could only desperately protect Bella and run to his room. Along the way, Jack took the climbing draft and fought one funeral after another. Seeing that his room was in front of him, a zombie was chasing after him. When Jack saw this, he immediately pushed Bella into the room, while he stayed outside and continued to fight with the bereaved. Then waves of screams came, and Bella was too scared to move at all. Fortunately, a few minutes later, Jack returned to the house covered in blood. Jack told Bella not to approach her, and then rushed to the balcony alone. She carefully checked every inch of skin on her body, because as long as she was bitten by a zombie, she would be infected instantly.